Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune into today's podcast from. And wow, it feels like ages since I've actually said those words. As always, for context, we're recording this on the 27th of January. This is my first podcast of 2025 for Event Industry News, and indeed the first Event Industry News podcast recording in several months. The back end of the year is taken up with Event Tech Live and Event Sustainability Live in London, and with all of the planning and the work that goes on behind the scenes to bring those events together in what is a relatively small team behind the scenes. There's been no podcast recordings for what feels like a long time, so it's great to be back behind the microphone today. If anybody follows me on Instagram, feel free to have a little look at what is being used as my microphone stand for today. We won't give anything away on the recording. That's for you to go and do your own research into. But yeah, it's great to be back behind the microphone and great to be welcoming my first guest of 2025. On the podcast today, we're going to be looking a little bit about digital transformation within the events industry. We've touched on all sorts of digital subjects and apps, platforms over the years, and it feels, I suppose, very apt that having sort of wrapped the back end of last year with Event Tech Live, that we've got a bit of a tech-focused podcast to kick the new year off with. So let's get our guests on and let's dive into some conversation today. I'm delighted to say that joining the Event Industry News podcast today is the Senior Vice President of Strategy from RainFocus, a brand that all of you guys who follow Event Tech Live will be familiar with. I'm delighted to say it's Brian Gates. Brian, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. Kick off the new year.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah. Good morning for Brian. Good afternoon for me. Tell us where you're joining us from today, Brian.
So I'm joining you from the not so warm state of Utah in the Lehigh area here. So a little cold today.
I think you're our first ever podcast guest that's joined us from Utah. We've had loads of, loads of guests from across the pond, and all I say, the obvious states may be covered, but you're our first Utah guest, Brian. So it's great, and cold there, and sort of similar conditions, I guess, to what we've got over in the UK at this time of year as well.
Well, winter is definitely in full force here. So
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and let's warm things up maybe with the conversation. Before we get into a little bit about sort of the subject of digital transformation, let's just give our podcast followers a bit of an overview as to who you are and who RainFocus are. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the business, Brian.
yeah, so SVP of Industry Strategy with RainFocus. Been with the company here since 2016, so which has been a few years, but it's been awesome to see the company grow. And say in my tenure with RainFocus, I've had the opportunity to start our UX team, build out our marketing team, institute our account-based marketing model, build
Mm.
out a variety of other functions within the business, introduce our benchmarks, introduce some of our data strategy elements. And most importantly, today, I get to spend a lot of time with our customers, our analysts, as well as kind of those that are, out in the market helping to shape and evolve the event industry as a whole. So it's a pretty fun position to be in. And as I really enjoyed my time here at the company.
And I'm pleased you used that word "evolve" there, and we'll obviously get into that in a little bit more detail. But for any of our podcast listeners who've maybe not come across RainFocus before as a brand, as a business, give them an idea of the type of services that you offer to people working in the events industry.
Yeah, so RainFocus was founded in 2013. So we're coming up on our, gosh, 12th year of business as a company. We got our first start really in the space, uh, solving for the data side and analytics side of events. Eventually, we moved into a full-fledged event management platform. So we cover everything from registration all the way to speaker management, all the way to
Mm.
sponsor and exhibitor management, and everything in between. What's really kind of unique about our software and our platform is that we have one product that we've built from the ground up from day one to service events that are, big in scale, events like a Dreamforce that are significant in size, all the way down to small event programs and thousands of those events. We do that all with one tool set. So it provides a lot of value, I think, for our users there and helping to aggregate events across the ecosystem and the various touch points that an organization has with their customers in one tool.
And it's interesting because one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is marketing, and for a lot of event organizers, it may not immediately come to mind that their event platform and what they're using to help run and manage their event is necessarily a tool for them to market their event. And the reason I sort of say that, a lot of people say, well, no, that's ridiculous. We use it all the time. Fine and dandy if you're one of those people. But what I'm seeing in the industry, particularly in the last 2 years, is lots and lots of smaller events who a few years ago wouldn't have entertained using an event platform, really embracing this technology now. And conferences down to sort of 50, 100 people, having a platform in place to help manage that. And I think that they're the people, in my first instinct, who would really be maybe not aware of the fact that they could be using a tool like RainFocus and their event platform for marketing their event. And I think that's one of the sort of the key things about digital transformation here is getting that message across. Can you expand on that a little bit for us and look at maybe how RainFocus as a platform then helps with that particular element of the planning process?
Yeah, I think you hit on it, James. I mean, events span the entire length of the customer journey, and so when you look at those smaller touch points, those smaller events, they're a critical step and probably the most important step across that customer journey. So as a brand engages with their audience, there's digital marketing that they'll be sending out. There's sales teams that will be getting involved, and then there's various events, whether it's a webinar, podcast, like this, where they're being interviewed or touched throughout that kind of journey, all the way up to their larger user conferences and everything in between. All these different experiential touch points are incredibly critical to understanding and driving value for your customer. And especially this day and age, those are the key points in that customer journey that help accelerate that customer experience. And so those small events, especially today, which are growing significantly in number for these brands, they're incredibly important to understand who's engaging, how they're engaging, and how that's helping to advance kind of the buyer's journey as well as the customer's journey.
That really is it, isn't it? Those touch points, because by deploying an event management platform, and not just for your attendees, speakers as well, you can see you have a precise. You can see their journey, can't you? From
Mhm.
registration right through to the completion of the event. You can see every element that they've interacted with, every session that they may have expressed an interest in or given some feedback on. And by analyzing that customer journey, we can refine the pathways for future events.
Exactly, and you hit on it there. I'd say the old view and kind of where I got my start in this industry. Prior to RainFocus, I worked in marketing automation and CRM
Mm. Right.
technology space, so understood those technologies helped create quite a bit of products in that realm. But events, I think, used to have this view as it was solely the event. And there's a lot of effort that goes into running an event. I'm getting my folks to come, to register, to attend, to participate, and then to provide some feedback. And that was kind of the life cycle of an event. And it was a point in time. I say, as far as marketing automation products and CRMs were concerned, did they register? Did they attend? Great. That's all I need to know.
Mm.
This day and age, it's a lot more important to understand how say your customer has gone into the event flow, how they've engaged in that flow, where they've engaged, who they've engaged with, and then kind of even some elements that are that feedback that help not only to shape and evolve your, I say, understanding of your customer base, but more importantly, help to refine the campaigns you're providing, how your sales team engages, and what even in those next events or next experiential elements could be in their journey to help them better connect with the brand, better understand your services and offerings, build a sense of community, and even become advocates for your uh, business as well.
When you mentioned something that sort of brought my interest early on, which was you're spending a lot more time being able to talk to customers. And
Mhm.
one thing that I'm really interested in when I speak to businesses like RainFocus and event management platforms is the onboarding process and the sales process. When you've got new customers coming on board who have never utilize a platform like this before, and yet let's use the smaller event organizer as an example, just
Mhm.
for the purposes of this question. It can be quite a daunting process taking it on board, first of all, you've got the process of demoing the platform to them in order to convince them that your platform is the right one, which has to be quite streamlined. I guess you don't want to give them too much because you want them to be able to understand it quickly. But then once they're on board and they've signed up to you, letting them know exactly how much and what your platform can do for them is really important as well. How much easier has that process become in the time that you've been with RainFocus? And is it because organizers have become more adept at this, or because the processes that companies like RainFocus have in place have become better?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think over the last several years, there's, you know, the pressures on those that operate events, I say across the spectrum there, have only grown. Um, So budgets have more or less remained flat, right? But with
Mhm.
inflation, have more or less shrank, right?
Sure.
Uh, as well as the available technologies that are out there available to these different, I say, planning groups have grown exponentially. So from our standpoint, we've done a lot, I think, to help streamline how we help customers see the value in the platform, and understanding that usually kind of that first year of value is say getting to par or above par, kind of where they had as they, when those first, I say, years, I say, in getting invested, you want to make
Mm.
sure that you kind of nail the event first. I think that's the main objective when we work with clients, is let's make sure we have a phenomenal event, and then kind of move into those, I say, larger value propositions there, of helping them to see the value of how that, I say, those events are adding value to the marketing and sales organization, and getting those three groups to work together as one. And so step one was get a great event. Step two is let's expound upon that and ensure that we're accelerating campaigns, accelerating your sales and account management team, and so they're using this data, and then ultimately coming back full circle to how we can evolve the event experience. So it's a crawl, walk, run type approach there, of helping customers kind of, again, get the value first with having a successful event.
Sure. And I guess then, as you've just explained it there, the kind of penny dropped for me is that the better they're using it to run the event, to plan the event and then run the event, then without even knowing it, after the event, they're going to be in a better position to then learn about what it can do for them for future events in terms of an analytical tool and a marketing tool, because they're going to have captured good data by using it efficiently to run their event.
Exactly. And we have a series of best practices we institute kind of at the beginning when bringing on a customer, that help set a good foundation for that data strategy, and usually those first round of integrations into their MarTech stack, so that
Mm,
when we do get to that end of, say, the first event, they're already seeing the dividends of that data coming in and being useful, and then being able to analyze and help improve, you know, again, kind of coming full circle again, the event experience, as you mentioned.
sure. How have MarTech stacks or tech stacks in general improved in the last 2 to 3 years? Have you seen that again, because people are more adept at deploying platforms like this, they've
Mhm.
shrunk, or are they just easier to integrate more complicated tech stacks?
Um, I think a lot of it actually, the pandemic had a real significant, inflection point on the industry as a whole. As
Mm,
as organizations had to navigate, say, physical events to solely virtual events, and then kind of coming back out of that, a lot of what happened there is digital teams and those that operated kind of the marketing operations components, I think, got exposed to understanding how powerful events were.
mm,
Usually, events teams were operating in a silo, independent of those groups. They might be in the same kind of budgetary and reporting structure, but there wasn't a whole lot of overlap.
mm.
Moving to where we are now, and especially the last, say, 2 years, 3 years, those groups had to work very closely together. And coming out of that, I think there was a realization of how valuable events were to the organization as a whole. And so those technologies, especially marketing automation and CRMs, create a lot of inroads to help absorb and say leverage a lot of the data that's coming from events. Events themselves are probably the leading source of first and zero party data with your customers, which is
Yeah.
incredibly valuable for those other groups that are struggling to get that type of data, especially digital marketing with privacy laws, cookies going away, not going away, and some of the elements they're impacting what they can use to drive more personalized campaigns.
And the fact that we can have everything, should you choose to, under one roof in terms of a platform now. And where they don't just have to have a registration provider that integrates with a badge provider that integrates with an app provider that integrates with etc etc etc. The fact that we can do this under one roof, I guess, is one of the strongest arguments for doing so, is that it gives you all these amazing touch points and data examples, and like you said, it's first and sort of second and ground zero data.
Absolutely. And say having a platform greatly simplifies your efforts, especially those running events. So you have to spend all the time trying to get these different point solutions to work together. That's take time away from you understanding your audience, building a better experience, delivering better results for the organization. Getting that time back allows you to elevate the event experience, drive better personalization, using that data, say to again enhance kind of the personalization that you're delivering, as well as working with your marketing teams and your sales teams and customer growth teams to help leverage that data for them to be more successful and say engaging with your customers.
This feels like a prime opportunity to ask you the AI question, and how AI tools. What one of the if we take it back a few years, one of the questions that I was asking people, organizers and platform providers, was, how do we understand all this data that's in there? It's great that you're telling us that we've got all this data that's available within these platforms, but how do we actually extract it in such a way that makes it meaningful to the organizer and that they can then do something meaningful with? And is AI and AI tools, are they going to play a part in us understanding and be able to analyze that data that's within your platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI has there's a tremendous amount of promise with AI, and I think we're still in the very early stages of seeing the value, I think, of AI.
Mm,
A lot of platforms have introduced kind of the kitschy AI solutions there that help generate some content or uh, session abstract title or a variety of things there that are helpful, but they're very low, and I think an impact in terms of say adoption there. As we look to kind of the rise of agentic AI and what's happening there, there's tremendous value there where your attendee data could be provided back to you with here are the segments you should bring to your next event because of X, Y, and Z.
sure.
Here's what we recommend you do to these audiences, and even have those AI agents go and do those things on behalf of you. So there's a tremendous amount of potential there, I think, in terms of how much AI is going to help simplify the understanding of value that you're getting from the events and the ROI for your organization, as well as significantly elevating the level of impact and personalization that your audience is going to get. And so you know, we have a couple products that help with driving recommendations for attendees that have
Mm,
significantly improved from where they were just a year ago in terms of providing the right, say, sessions and engagements and networking components to help attendees get the right value from the event. The As a relevancy and adoption and impact of those things have gone up quite a bit. So there's a big return on that. There's, like you mentioned, kind of understanding of data. So coming back for those that are running events, we have a AI agent we'll be introducing here called our data co-pilot, which helps analyze, I say, the event, help you understand, who engaged the most, who
mm.
is most likely to take that next action, what folks should be going back to your next event, and then providing a variety of reports around those things and doing it automatically. So there's, again, AI has the potential there, and I think we're just the beginning there to see where this becomes such a massive, as say, accelerant to those that are running events to drive better outcomes, do it with less effort, and be in a position to really connect meaningfully with their audiences with, again, leveraging these different tool sets and data.
In terms of where and how an organizer can use something like RainFocus to really personalize their marketing messages and bring a level of personalization to the people receiving those, are we still at a stage where a user would have to use data that's within RainFocus? Or, for example, if via the registration process and the personalization of their profile, an attendee via RainFocus can link their LinkedIn profile, is it possible to almost sort of scrape or scan their activities on LinkedIn and bring that into the personalization elements that you can deliver?
Yeah, LinkedIn's interesting. I think we've had some great conversations when LinkedIn. We're I say building our partnership there as well. You know, LinkedIn is an awesome, as a set of B2B data. You think about the audience that lives there and what's happening there. Being
Mm,
able to connect your personal profile for a given brand to your omnipresent profile that you have in LinkedIn, there's tremendous potential there. I think for organizations, the biggest, is the easiest avenue to date is honestly connecting what happens at your event to what happened in digital marketing and what happened in CRM, right? Those
yeah.
are the most immediate, say, data structures that you can connect into. And we talk about a little bit about digital transformation and what that means for organizations. Being able to tap into those data sources that are internal are going to be, I'd say, the quickest way to seeding value that go well beyond, and say, what can be, and say, gathered and used just in the event platform itself. So the second you can start connecting into digital marketing, your marketing automation tool sets there, where you're understanding again what content they provided, what marketing campaigns you're a part of, how you've engaged on social, how you've engaged on the web. These things help better understand the end user. There's
Mm,
all sorts of, I think, privacy considerations that go into those
sure.
things as well. As the
Of
more you
course there are.
list
Yeah.
these things, the scarier it gets. Uh,
Yeah.
that being said, the value for a user there of, I say, getting to the right things. And you think about events, I'm taking time, I'm taking money, I'm taking all those precious things to go be at something or to engage with something, making sure that those things are going to have an impact on me and I know that I'm going to get value from those things. Is That's the advantage of having kind of the unified profile data structure there. Is
Mm.
now I get the event experience and is that much more is impactful to me as an attendee than what it would have been if it was just on an island on its own.
Yeah, because I think bringing it back to, I suppose, what you may call a fundamental level of delivering events is that I still feel like that the balance of power is still very much in terms of the organizer pushing their content and agenda for their event, whatever that may be, onto the audience rather than it being the other way around, rather than it being I'm yet to see it's certainly in the B2B realm, maybe B2B realm, a genuinely audience or attendee driven event in terms of the content and what they can get from it. I still think that as organizers, you know, we are still very guilty of saying, right, here's our content. We're going to invite this speaker and we're going to put this session on and we're going to do this, that, and the other. So, despite having all these tools available, I still think that the whole conversation of digital transformation and in some respects, instead of transformation, digital evolution is important because even though these tools are there and it's obvious that they're there, I still think that we've got a long way to go before we are genuinely using them effectively. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I still think from a content point of view, it is still very much organizers driving it.
No, I would agree. That being said, I think we're in kind of that inflection point right now. We've got kind of an advantage, I would say, with our business in terms of how we connected with Adobe and with Salesforce. Their products and platforms are fairly ubiquitous out there,
Mm,
especially with the organizations we work with. You know, they each have their own version of a customer data platform, right? Which is this, we'll say, omnipresent way to aggregate data around an individual.
sure.
And to your point there, James, what's exciting about that is as you're, as I identifying audiences to come to that next experience, what that potentially provides there is here's what that experience should be. These are the folks that are coming. This is what they're interested in. This is the type of experiences they like to have. Deliver this experience for this audience. That's kind of I think the promise that's coming with being able to connect those three systems together with your event platform,
Mm,
that allows you to be, let's say, more proactive in terms of being able to shape and mold that experience based off the desires and the requests and really kind of the outcomes your audience is looking for, and flips the model from what you just described, right? Where I've built the event experience and now I'm trying to find people to come to it. It's now I have the people and I'm going to build the experience for them.
yeah, because if we do it right, it also potentially opens up the doors. I, I see that this technology and the tools that that is available now to organizers there are other events, there are yet to be discovered events waiting to happen within the data that's now available to us. It's not just about making your existing event better or tailoring it and making it more suited and more personalized to your attendees' needs, but I'm convinced that within the data that's available now, there are events that haven't even been conceived yet that are waiting to happen because there's a demand for them within that data.
Exactly. And again, I think that's where we're at, as an industry, is being at that precipice of being able to, not look at events as points in time, right? As I just
Mm,
need to deliver this specific event, but looking at events as a key accelerants to that customer journey. So now I have you, we've done this wonderful thing together and this experience at this location with this audience. Because of that, I know this next experience is going to be ideal for this segment of the audience with this
yeah.
other set of content. Let's deliver that next. And that is where we're, I think, right at as an industry of being able to start doing that. You see a kind of a trend in the industry of doing this, we'll say, without without the systems in play, where there's a
Mm,
growing segment of events that are being run today that are like sub 200 attendees, but they're very localized, very targeted. Those audiences and the content experiences are coming out of that MarTech system to say, go deliver this experience. Now it's, I think, connecting your event platform to help be part of that equation. So it really kind of brings not just the right audience, but the right experience to the forefront as well.
yeah, and isn't that a really good point to make, that it does allow you to be more focused. It's not just a sheer numbers game like it was 25 years ago. Events were not necessarily consumer events and gigs and things like that, but certainly in the B2B sector, it was a numbers game. It was about volume. It was, if
Mhm.
it was your trade show or your expo, it was about getting the numbers through the door. And the more people we can get through the door, the more chance there is of our exhibitors and our sponsors doing business, the more chance there is that our conference theatres would be full for the speakers that we've invited and paid to be there. Um, it is such a different world that we live in now, and so much better because we are seeing so many more smaller events that know they can operate on a smaller basis because they can target more effectively. That's what it comes down to. They don't have to play the numbers game anymore. They don't have to gamble of just trying to get enough footfall through the door. Invite 50 people, but invite 50 of the right people to the right place with the right content, and there's business there for everybody.
Absolutely. And everybody's happier, right? As the attendees get that kind of intimate experience, they get to meet and network with all those that are involved in that intimate setting there. And again, you can have higher impact.
Mm,
There's a tremendous amount of value in being in that position there. That being said, I think the larger conferences still have a lot of relevancy today. There's
mm.
the uh, gravity, the show, the impact of those large conferences. You can't replicate that in a small setting. They're different, and they're used for different reasons. I think to help engage your audience. They both have a place.
And again, I think that only what you've just said only reinforces the point about using the data and the digital transformation argument, because if the data and what your platforms are saying says these big events are working and people are engaging, and we've got all these touch points to show that having 3,000 people in a big convention center is working for us, then brilliant. I think what you've just said only reinforces the whole argument of digital transformation, because it is about tailoring your event to whatever the data is now telling you that it could or should be.
Absolutely. And again, we see that in our customer base where, again, they're running kind of the full spectrum of events on our platform. And so they're using, those smaller events as ways to accelerate people into the big event. And in the big event, they're also using those to break out other segments to drive smaller events that are more personalized and targeted based off the kind of the audiences that coalesced at those. So
Mm.
you do have this, I will say, kind of full funnel, the entire journey perspective on how events help kind of shape that person's relationship with the brand, as well as the community around that brand and the products and offerings they have.
Absolutely. And just with one eye on time, it would be foolish of me not to have you on at the start of the year and not to sort of delve into a little bit of your own roadmap. Anything that you can tell us about RainFocus this year? What's on the horizon? New clients, existing clients? How does it shape up for you?
Yeah, so we just came off another fantastic year. I say growing quite substantially year over year. So we're looking to replicate the same, I think, this year. And more importantly, I think, is the impact we've had for our customers. Say The last year, we spent a fair amount investing in some of our AI tool sets, as well as our data and reporting elements there. Just seeing tremendous, say, adoption there, as well as value from our customers. Some customers have seen 40% increase in pipeline, a 7% reduction in cost per attendee. Like, these are, say, fantastic metrics that as an organization we want to continue to build on that success. So as we look forward to this year, there's, I say, a bigger investment to help support, I say, those small scale events and be able to do that at scale. So when you're running those 50-person, I say, intimate settings, being able to templatize those and be able to spin those out and again see that data very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah.
As well as kind of connecting that back into the data structure. I mentioned our AI data tool set. We've got a couple other products there that are going to help streamline the build out using some AI feature sets for our admins, essentially, so that here's the audience, here's the setting, great, here's the template, here's the event, and you're ready to go. So taking a lot of the administrative burden out of the those that are admitting the product, as well as helping to amplify the impact that brings to your audience, right? With some of the tools that are around personalization, using that data to better ensure that they're getting the right experience, the right content, the right activations at the event, so that the event team, I think, has a tremendous opportunity. As we look to the future, customer experience is what is driving the market today across all B2B. So how do you amplify your customer experience? And the event teams have an outsized, I say, impact on that customer experience. And so giving them the tools and the avenue there to best use their talents to impact that and drive the customer experience, that's really exciting, I think, for not just, I say, customers of RainFocus, but really our industry as a whole, is how that is becoming kind of the leading, we'll say, tool set within the customer relationship bag of tricks. There is being able to use experiential marketing as a way to really drive a business forward, and again, just great ways for folks to engage with their brands.
And one thing, just to sort of round off, if I may, just offer a very small snippet of an opinion, is that when you talk about an event tech company that started in 2013, we're now talking about an event tech company that is what could be considered a veteran within the industry, and I don't think it should be underestimated how brands like RainFocus and the other platforms that are out there that have stabilized and cemented their place within the events industry now. There was a period of time pre-pandemic where we saw virtually every couple of months a new platform springing up and would disappear, a new platform would spring up and then quickly disappear. And I think to be talking to any event tech company that's 12 years into their business and is stable and cemented, we're talking now about companies that can offer real insight and real value to organizers if you choose to engage with them. I think there is a small percentage of event organizers out there who still think of event tech as some kind of fly by night thing. Tech companies who are springing up and trying to push something on them. They need to, that small percentage, if any of you are listening today, realize that these tech companies have now been around for over a decade. They're a fundamental part of how this event industry operates. And if you're not engaging with a company like RainFocus or whoever you may choose to engage with, and that there's plenty others out there, then you're choosing to miss a very, very valuable part of your event operation, I think. And for what it's worth, that's my kind of snippet of opinion to end today's episode, Brian.
But couldn't completely agree. I think event tech is it's no longer the little thing that happens outside of marketing. It is absolutely core to the business operations, and is only going to become more important.
Absolutely, it absolutely will be. We've been blessed today by the company of the Senior Vice President of Strategy, Brian Gates from RainFocus. And if you want to find out a little bit more about what those guys can offer you as an event organizer, rainfocus.com would be the most obvious place to start. If you're watching this, that's now on the screen in front of you, but a really easy one, rainfocus.com. Go and have a look around their website. It's really well laid out. It's a great website, and they're not all great. It's one as another pain point for another episode. They're not all great, but it's a really easy website to navigate around. Go and have a look at what those guys are up to, and see if it will suit you and your events this year. Brian, it's been great speaking to you today. Before we wrap up today's episode, just a couple of other quick mentions. If you want to head over to eventindustrynews.com, you'll find the latest news, features, special supplements, of course, the A to Z supplier directory. If you're running an event and you need something, anything, it could be toilets for your outdoor summer festival, it could be a tech platform for your B2B conference. The chances are you will find it in the A to Z supplier directory located on eventindustrynews.com. And don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to this today or watching it maybe via YouTube or via the Event Industry News website, thank you very much for tuning in. But go to wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure that you subscribe so that you get each episode as and when it's delivered by the team at Event Industry News. Which brings us neatly and nicely to the end of today's episode. My thanks once again to Brian Gates from RainFocus. I'll leave Brian now to crack on with the rest of his week, having joined us first thing on a Monday morning from Utah. My name's James Dickson, and as always, it's been a pleasure to host the Event Industry News podcast. We'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Goodbye.